Welcome back to the Working Class Gamer Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about, of course, what I've been playing, my PlayStation Wrapped for 2024, games I'm looking forward to in 2025. Is Tencent really a military company? And I'll give you my preview of Dynasty Warriors before diving into my current obsession, Days Gone. Let's get it. Okay. What's up, everybody? What's up? So one of two things happened. Either there was no intro or there was an intro. And that just depends on if I brokered the deal fast enough before dropping this episode. But there will be an intro. Next episode, most definitely. Shout out to Mon P. Got a beat together for me. And I, as a fellow artist, I got to purchase that beat. So this is the Working Class Gamer Podcast. So it's either it was either bought in time for today or bought in time for the next episode. I hope you guys are doing good, man. I hope you guys have had just a wonderful time as far as your New Year's celebrations, if any, that you had a good holiday. I think the last time I talked to you guys was before Christmas. So I hope you had a good holiday with your family. And I hope that this is finding you well. I'm going to try not to sip too much today, but it just gives me wings, man. It keeps my energy going. I don't mind saying their slogan on this little podcast. Now, here's the thing. With the new year comes like goals and resolutions and yada, yada, yada. And if you have any of that, please let me know in the comments. Please like and subscribe, by the way. Appreciate you guys for being here. But as far as me, personal resolutions that I have in regards to this podcast and this gaming channel, number one, and this isn't really a resolution so much as it is like an intention that was set a while ago, maybe last episode. But I'm going to give you guys 2 episodes per month. If you've been with me since the beginning, you know this is a gameplay focused podcast, and I'm always playing games, even if it's not the latest games. And I do kind of always have something to talk about, I feel like, with games. And on top of just news as it happens, I think 2 episodes a month right now. Again, being a working class gamer, holding down a 9 to 5 and that sort of thing, it's just easier on me. And I think it's better for you guys and my audience just to enjoy what I give you. I'm excited. This is going to be my first full year. The intention is to go the entire year, honestly, 2 episodes a month. This will be my first full year covering games. I started this podcast in like late August, early September of last year, something like that. So I'm really looking forward to just the ebb and flow of news and trends, and also just what games come my way and enter my sphere. Because again, back to the resolutions thing, one of my resolutions this year is to just be more intentional with the games I play. And I'm going to get into why that is in a second, but I'm going to play through my backlog. I'm not buying anything. I don't know about you guys, but like these digital sales, bro, like they're always really good. The deals are always good. I'm not complaining about the deals, but I always end up buying like 7 to 10 games that I don't need, like in a 2-month span, November and December. Like since the Black Friday sale on PlayStation and the current holiday sale that's still happening and won't actually, today is the last day for a lot of those games. But yeah, the New Year's sale and the Black Friday sale. Well, they called it a holiday sale when it started because it was right before. It was either right before or right after Christmas. It was either like the 24th, 25th, something like that. Up to right now. But anyway, between those 2 sales, like I've bought like 6 or 7 games, bro. And when I got my PlayStation Wrapped, I like immediately realized like how many games I have and how many games I have not finished. You know what I'm saying? So between paying monthly fees to access a certain collection just so I can like rent games, because I'm not completing them, so you're basically just renting these games, and just we get into digital versus physical and all that kind of stuff, just the nature of collecting and owning games. Like the least I could do, especially with something I spend my dollars on, is finish the game. So this year my intention is to finish more games, maybe not a dozen, because I only finished 2 last year. So that number might not go up crazy, but I would like to finish like 7 to 10 games this year. And I think that starts with just not playing 7 to 10 massive RPGs. You know what I'm saying? Like, I still don't know. I've said it before. I still don't know when I'm going to find time to play Baldur's Gate 3. I know it's my type of game. I know if I streamed it, it would probably do numbers for my channel. But I don't want to open that can of worms yet. I'm just not ready to do it. Other stuff, like, I know I'm not going to finish Valhalla this year. I may finish Valhalla this year, but like, I got to finish Origins and Odyssey first before I get into Valhalla. And I know I'm going to play Shadows before I do any of those three things. I know that's going to happen. So anyway, let me not get ahead of myself. Let me tell you guys specifically what is in my backlog as far as what I intend to play and complete in the year 2025. I'm not going to name this first game because we're going to talk about it later. It should be obvious what game that is based on the title. But Armored Core 6 will be the next one after the one I'm playing now. Then it'll be Armored Core 6 or Far Cry 5. One of those two I'm going to start. And because Far Cry 5 has kind of crept its way into what I'm doing now. So that'll either follow up what I'm doing now or Armored Core 6 will. After those two, because I'm going to complete those two just in whatever order. Then I'm going to get into, no pun intended, The Order 1886. I'm going to finish that. That shouldn't take me long. The way I play games, especially games like that, 2, maybe 3 days. After that, I will finally finish The Last of Us Part 1 so that I can play The Last of Us Part 2. Jedi Survivor after that. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth after that, which, if I'm timing it correctly, should come after I beat Doom the Dark Ages, if that's going to be the summer release, I think it is. And then I get another chance this summer in June and July to like catch up on games. So Final Fantasy VII Rebirth hopefully will be a summer title for me. And then Nier Automata. And then I have Evil West on here. And I would also like to mention Forspoken as well. I'm going to finally finish those games. I may move Evil West and Forspoken up in the list and say, like, what I want to do, because again, I love massive open world RPGs. They don't even have to be RPGs, just like a massive open world with a great gameplay loop. And if you're an RPG, that's an added bonus. But those are the games I migrate to first. And I love all types of games. And I think I do myself a disservice trying to play all of those types of games first. So I'm trying to take these concentrated single player experiences and get them out of the way, with the exception of Far Cry 5. Like, that's just one, like, the way I play Far Cry games, I'll get through that pretty quickly. At least the last one I played with this much interest was Far Cry 3. And that was like, granted, I played that at a different time where I used to buy a game one at a time, like 4 times a year, maybe, because I was spending my parents' money. But I think that I can finish Far Cry 5 pretty quickly. But with the exception of that one, I want to get all the other like true single player, like linear experiences out of the way. And even though Last of Us Part 2 is a little more open, it's still like a linear experience. So I want to do like Evil West and Forspoken and all that before I get into Jedi Survivor and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I want to play these. This is the thing, man. Like 2024, I don't know how anybody could say 2024 was a bad year in gaming because there were so many options to play. It was easy to say no to a lot of stuff for me personally. Like Metaphor, for instance, wasn't in immediate buy that I just had to have day one. I'll get to that eventually. Probably not in 2025, but I will play that game. But like, no one can say that they didn't have options on top of the backlog that everybody has. So 2024 really was a great year, and 2025 looks like it's going to be sick, man. Like, it's going to be crazy. So I just want to catch up on this backlog that I have because this PlayStation Wrapped is ridiculous. I don't know if I said the amount already, but I'm going to go ahead and get into my PlayStation Wrapped. By the way, if you have a PlayStation account, go to wrapup.playstation.com, wrap up like present wrap, and like sign in, and it'll give you a full Apple Music, Spotify type breakdown of like what you played and how often you played and your top genre and yada, yada, yada. And I'm about to break it down line by line because when I saw this the first time, like they made it available like midway through December, which like it does update. Like, my final numbers are here. The numbers are a little bit more than they were at the time I first saw it, because at the time I first saw it, we still had like 15 days left in December. But yeah, it really opened my eyes to like just how hyper fixated I will get on a particular game, and also how distracted I will get with my gaming. Because in 2024, I played 79 games. 62 on PS5 and 17 on PS4. I can't even tell you. I can't name 79 games off the top of my head. Like, maybe if you put a gun to my head, I could do it. But like, just right now in the comfort of my own home, I can't name you 79 games. Maybe like if I really had to, I could, but I can't tell you the 79 games that I played last year. Now, I understand that this is like me downloading games from a collection, checking out games, borrowing games from friends. I got to do air quotes because if you know where I be 9 to 5, then you know which friend I be borrowing games from. So yeah, just between all of that kind of stuff, I'm sure I've logged in and launched 79 game applications, 100%. I just can't tell you what they are. And again, I've only beat 2 games this year, and that's going to be the top 2 in my top 5 that I'm about to give you. So I never want that to happen again. At least not without intention. Like if I beat 10 games and I play 79, I won't feel the same way I feel now telling you that I played 79 games and I only beat, like, rolled credits on 2 of them. That's crazy. So yeah, that was like just the first slide. When I was like, okay, 2020, I got to do different. Especially like for some of my like older listeners, you understand, like 28, I turned 28 this past September. That was the first time like where not like I didn't feel like I was getting old, but it's just like, oh, like in regards to gaming is what I'm talking about. I was like, oh man, like I'm really starting to have to pick and choose what I do with my time, especially when it comes to your dreams and ambitions and yada, yada, yada. Like I can't be playing games like because I don't think I play them like when I can't sleep or whatever. So it's not like I'm like playing them when I could be being productive. I be productive and then I find time to play games. But it's just like, it's not the time that bothers me. It's just like, I have to be more intentional with what I play. Like, what am I, not to be super dramatic, but the things I'm letting through my eyes and all that kind of stuff, like what I'm consuming, like I just got to be more intentional with it. There's no excuse. There's literally no excuse whatsoever. Anyway, so let's get into my top 5, man, because, you should have noticed we're not doing a game of the year conversation because I told you guys what my game of the year is for the last like three or 4 episodes. So we're not doing that. I have nothing to say about Astrobot winning game of the year. This is not going to be that episode. I'm never going to, if I was going to do that, I would have made that episode immediately after, but I was just really enjoying the holiday season, playing my games with intention, not really trying to pump out content. All the other gaming channels took a break, so I was going to take a break too. But yeah, Astrobot winning game of the year, it deserved it. It's not in my top 5 most played, but I did play that game. I played like 3 hours of that game. And I'm going to get back to it. But yeah, I have nothing to say about that because my game of the year is my number 1, and that's Black Myth Wukong. I played that game 93 hours last year. I got 22 trophies, and it took up 13% of my total playtime for 2024. My total hours played, by the way, for 2024 was 678 hours. 38 of those hours being multiplayer. So I spent a lot of time by myself gaming. I mean, I guess I can give you guys a few words about Wukong. The reason that game has 93 hours clocked and it only took me 75 hours to beat it the first time is because it is one of the best action games ever made. Third-person action game, whatever classification you want to give it, it's the best to me. I just like it is. God of War 2018 is a monumental achievement, honestly, for third-person action melee games specifically. Devil May Cry 5, another good example. But God of War 2018 especially, to me, is that it's more of a work of art than just a game, if that makes sense. Not to try and add any level of pretentiousness to God of War, but it is more artsy than your traditional action game. Like every frame of that game feels like a work of art. Everything in that game is very intentional. And the way that I felt the first time playing God of War, it's the same way I felt the first time I played Red Dead Redemption 2. And I didn't feel that feeling for a long time until maybe Cyberpunk 2077, which was like 2 years later. And then I didn't feel that again until Wukong, which was 4 years later. I can't think of it. Well, I lied. Final Fantasy 16 last year. I didn't have a podcast when I was out, but you bet your bottom dollar if I did have a podcast when Final Fantasy 16 first came out, I would have talked about that. I would have been glazing every episode of 2023 because that was another one. But Wukong, I got a little bit more love for Wukong than over Final Fantasy 16. And if you know me personally, you know I love 16. I love that game. That's one of the best action games ever made. Period. Third person action, however you want to classify it, melee, it's one of the best. It's one of the best story based games of the 21st century. It's one of the best story based games of the 2020s. Like it's top 5. It's definitely top 5 2020s. So, but Wukong, man. And the thing about Wukong is the context. Like it is the context in which that game was made. It wasn't just like an adaptation. It was an interpretation. It was I've said this before. It was like if a renowned Christian filmmaker was allowed to do I don't want to say the Passion of Christ. I don't want to sound blasphemous to anybody, but maybe like the story of Moses or something like that, or the story of Abraham. It's like a Haitian making a biopic about Wyclef Jean. Like it's that important. You know what I mean? It's even more important than the things I'm describing. It may be on the same level. The journey to the West and its relevance to Chinese culture may be on the same level of the Bible and its relevance to Western culture. It's almost there. I don't want nobody to think I'm talking crazy, so I'll say it's almost there. But it's up there. They're in the same league. Like this is a big deal for the people in China, and we know that because of the numbers this game did on Steam. This is ridiculous. We know that because of the Player's Choice Game of the Year awards that has won. Every time they gave the gamers an option to vote, Black Myth Wukong won. It won the Ultimate Game of the Year award at the Golden Joysticks, which was a couple weeks before the Game Awards. It won Player's Choice at the Game Awards. I think it won Best Action Game at the Game Awards. And I don't even think the Game Awards they're not the Oscars of gaming. That would be like the DICE Awards and stuff like that. But every time I see a Player's Choice thing, Black Myth Wukong is winning. It won the Steam Player's Choice Award, and everybody has something to say about it. And I saw this really. I don't want to name the creator because I'm about to criticize it, and I'm not subscribed, but I do engage with their content. I saw this just video breakdown of the Game of the Year controversy, and like the way that this person described Black Myth Wukong is they described it through, and they said it, everything they saw on the internet. And y'all know I sit here and tell you, get off the internet when it comes to enjoying a game. Like the internet is going to ruin a game for you. I'm telling you, it's one of my favorite games of all time. If it's not one of yours, that's cool. Like I don't think if I was having a casual gaming convo with somebody, I don't think I would let them get it off. They're like, yeah, that game is trash. There's no way you can get that off. But if you have a different Game of the Year for 2024, like that's your opinion. It's all subjective. You know what I'm saying? There are a lot of people who think Metaphor deserved it. And if Metaphor won, I totally would have understood that in the same way I understand Astrobot winning. I think like if you engage with gaming outside of the culture war, because people tried to use Wukong in the culture war, I don't understand that. But if you engage with gaming outside of that, which a lot of regular people do, and that's who my main audience is, I feel like I'm talking to the people that don't, your Twitter algorithm isn't going crazy with a bunch of gaming takes. You know what I mean? So I'm telling you guys, my audience, Wukong is worth a shot at $59.99 standard, $65 for the disc, $69 for the digital deluxe. It's worth that. If you like action games, it's worth that. If you even have an interest in action games, you should play Wukong. And you should play it like a linear experience. It's invisible walls. You can't go everywhere. That wasn't the intention of the developer. At a certain point, they made a choice. It can't be this big. In Chapter 6, in the wide open area, could use a little bit of guidance, and they updated every level with a map now. But as far as an action experience, as far as an artistic experience in gaming, for me, this past year, of the 79 games that I played, I guess, like Wukong was the one that it gave me great gameplay, but it gave me something to engage with just as a enjoyer of art. It gave me something to engage with. So yeah, 93 hours and counting. Shout out to the PS5 Pro update. Really great enhancement that they did. I think Unreal Engine 5 can thrive on the PS5 Pro. They just got to figure out how to optimize it better for the base consoles like the Series S and the base PS5. Because there are some Unreal 5 games that when they launch on base PS5, they're not the best experiences. But Wukong on December 31st, 2024, which is not when I'm recording this, but Wukong on December 31st, 2024 was the best game to me. It was the best game that I played. And, that's why it's all relative. Number 2 in my top 5. And this is just numbers. It's not like my top 5 favorite games. These are just numbers. Number 2 in my top 5 most played games on PlayStation last year was Stellar Blade. 66 hours, 32 trophies, 9% of my total playtime. Stellar Blade, man. I love that game. And it's not even just because of Eve. Eve is a great character to me. But she was a draw for sure. The character design was a draw. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like she wasn't. But the game, it's like the gameplay, the world is what really like drew me in. That first trailer, when they show the fight between Eve and like, is it the Alpha Nativa in the space station? I don't know if it's the Alpha Nativa, but it's the space station level. That's like the third to last level, third to last major boss you got to deal with. And when they show that trailer of her engaging with this beast that takes up the entirety of the space station and playing the game and seeing how that went through, that was crazy. But just the whole aesthetic of that game like really appeals to me. It's the Ghost in the Shell, cyberpunk, like super high future, just kind of heady. It's not as heady as, well, I don't want to say it's not as heady as Nier Automata, because some people have said that, and I think it is once you break it down. But it's just so slick, man. It's so slick. It's so cool. Like a lot of games nowadays just aren't as cool as they used to be. Like I remember being a kid and you would see certain things that just looked cool. Like Shadow the Hedgehog, the video game, looked really cool versus like the Sonic the Hedgehog game or Sonic Unleashed and all that other stuff. Like Shadow the Hedgehog looked cool. Heavenly Sword on PS3 2006 looked really cool. Like cool games. We don't get a lot of cool looking games anymore, if that makes sense. And Stellar Blade is one of the coolest games to come out in a long time. Like the combat, the abilities, so many different abilities like that can be applied so differently. The parrying mechanic, just the animation for parrying, the animation for dodging, like it just, everything about that game was so slick and cool. That game ran perfect on day one. And it's one of like 2 or 3 games that could say it ran perfect on day one. I can't say Wukong ran perfectly for me on day one, because there was some times that it stuttered in certain boss fights. It crashed a couple times. Stellar Blade never crashed on me. It never stuttered. The performance mode was my go-to. Now on PS5 Pro, my go-to is the Pro Max mode, because I do like the max amount of graphics in that game, and it's still 60 FPS at 4K. The Pro mode on PS5 Pro is pretty dope too. It gets you up to about 90 FPS on average, fluctuating between like 80 and 110. It's crazy. And that's just like, that's Unreal Engine 4 at its max. Stellar Blade is just one of the coolest games I've played in a long time. And that final boss fight, the final boss fight, that is everything that game is. It is the biblical meeting the incredibly technological. It was just an incredible piece of work. Incredible piece of work. And if it weren't for, I think Wukong just really resonated with me, but there's an argument for Stellar Blade having the best combat of the entire year. Just the best feeling and the best looking. And Rebirth might be up there, right up under it, because they refined it so well in Rebirth. And I only played that game 7 hours last year, and I know that. But Stellar Blade just had it for especially being a character action game. And that the way that game feels, like, you know how The Last of Us feels really big budget, like when it's like, holy I'm playing something like I'm playing something that was made with like $500 million. Like GTA also kind of feels that way. GTA 6 is going to feel that way. Red Dead 2 feels that way. Like Stellar Blade has that feeling when you're playing it, like when you're moving around. It's like, yo, I'm playing, like this is PS5. You know what I'm saying? This is PS5. Couldn't have been done any other generation. Like it feels like the stars aligned for this game, this generation. And I love that game. And it took me like 48, 49 hours to finish. And that other 17 is like just me in New Game Plus right now. Yeah. Love Stellar Blade. Like there were some really great games that should have. I don't know. I don't know what it is about Stellar Blade. I know that the gooners are out there and may have ruined a little bit of its reputation in the streets, just in the general streets. The people who are just fawning over Eve, like, and you're gonna have that. And I think that's you understand that risk when you design a character like that. But I think that has existed in gaming for so long. Like, you guys have seen Inside Out 2, the girl having the crush on her favorite action character. Like, that exists. And I'm not talking about having a crush on Eve. I'm just saying, like, designing a character to look a certain way. That's always existed in gaming, and they leaned in it just the right amount. It worked for the story, and just the rest is just players, because you can't drop a game without a photo mode, and people are going to do what they do. So I think in a perfect world, I think that gets a little more accolades beyond like the music and the graphics. I think in a perfect world, somebody has the gall to say, no, this was the best action game. It doesn't have to be game of the year, but this was the best action game. So anyway, Cyberpunk 2077 is number 4 at 47 hours. And it's that's mainly because I bought Phantom Liberty last year, finally. Played through all of it, and now I've just been cleaning up all the side missions with that save that exist, so that then I can pretty much have done like all the major side missions. Like, I'm doing the carry stuff right now. I just finished the rogue stuff. And then I'm gonna stream the end game of Cyberpunk. Like, with the context of Phantom Liberty, I'm gonna do the assault on Arasaka Tower by myself. I'm not gonna call on Pan Am, which is what I did my first playthrough of that game back in 2020. So I'm really excited to see how this plays out with the final updates of that game. Cyberpunk 2077 is easily one of the best games of all time. Like, easily. It's on my list, and I just don't see, launch aside, like, we got to be for real, because Elder Scrolls Skyrim launched horribly, and people love that game, and I'm not going to dismiss anybody that thinks that that's one of the best of all time, because it might be. But Cyberpunk 2077 in its current form on PS5 and Xbox Series X is one of the best games of all time. It is one of the best worlds you can get lost in. It's not lost in the level of maybe of a Skyrim, but on a GTA 5 level, it surpasses GTA 5. It surpasses Witcher 3, in my opinion. It might, and actually, I take that back. It might be one of the most immersive open world experiences out right now. Just in the building your own character, number 1, deciding how you want to play that game, number 2, engaging with that game the way you want to engage with it. Like, it's just like, there's not a lot of games like that. There's not a lot of games with that level of choice baked into almost in the story, in the gameplay, and in who you are as a character. There's not many games with that much choice. So yeah, 2077 will probably always be on my list of most played, because I love, that's a leisurely game for me now. Because I just can play it. I can play that game in my sleep, so I play that game on hard, and I can't tell you the last time I died, like in a shootout. So I love just like engaging with that game and riding around and looking for assaults in progress, or like, you know, kind of just simming that game, like going to my place and taking a shower, waking up, riding around, doing a gig. Maybe I get a call from Pan Am, yada, yada, yada. I like that. It's one of the best games for that. And number 5 of my Wrapped 2024, it's Dragon's Dogma 2. 35 hours, 19 trophies, 5% of my playtime. Have not beat that game, by the way. That's my favorite game to lollygag in. There's something to be said about why I chose to engage with Wukong and Stellar Blade on the level that I did. Because Dragon's Dogma 2 was before Stellar Blade, and I think it was just a case of once Stellar Blade came. Because I played Dragon's Dogma a lot when it released in March. That might have been my main game. That's where a large chunk of those hours come from. But once Stellar Blade was in my hands, which was day one, it was a wrap. But Dragon's Dogma 2, man, I love the fantasy world. I love having to walk everywhere and strategize and maybe have to find an ox cart to get somewhere. I love that like fast travel costs a little sum, so like more than a little sum, so you're not really incentivized to do it. Yeah, I love just about everything about that game. The way it sounds, the way it feels, the way it plays. The PS5 Pro update, it's one of the best. It's a top 3 PS5 Pro update in my opinion. Your party, your pawns and everybody, the other pawns that you recruit, that just the way they talk and respond to the things that you do, and then fighting with them when you fight ogres and drakes and all that kind of stuff. It's a great game. I love Dragon's Dogma 2. It's everything the first one was, but better. I feel like it should have got just a little bit more love at the end of the year game conversation. So that's my contribution to that. I think it did a lot of great things that games are going to build off of, and they're going to do it like low key. We're not going to really notice it. I think Crimson Desert is going to borrow a lot from what Dragon's Dogma 2 did. I think Crimson Desert honestly is shaping up to be this like Witcher Dragon's Dogma hybrid, to be honest, with a little bit of Final Fantasy 16 thrown in there. We'll get to that later. But yeah, just continuing on with my Wrapped, man. Like 49% of my games were action adventure. That's no surprise to me. 678 hours played, 38 being multiplayer, 379 trophies earned in total, and I made 28 new friends, which is a part of why I want to play games, why I want to play them this year. Like the type of gamer I want to be this. I want to be a little bit more social. I want to talk to people more while playing Rivals and Black Ops 6. Whether it's I remember one time in Black Ops 6 I made a whole new friend. And then playing with my long distance friends, like well, I ain't gonna name y'all's names, but y'all know who you are. But my long distance friends like in Atlanta and Colorado and yada yada yada, like on Marvel Rivals or Black Ops 6 or whatever. Like I just want to do more of that. In addition to being more intentional with my single player experiences. So yeah, that when I saw that PlayStation Wrapped, that was just like, okay, I gotta tighten up in my gaming behaviors. I gotta tighten up because I don't think I'm gaming too much. Because there's not much for me to watch, and like when it comes to just making stuff to watch, I'm trying to move into doing that. I'm trying to make the things that I watch, basically. So I don't really watch much TV. I mostly watch movies. And so when I'm not watching a movie, I'm playing a game. Like the only show I watch is Curb Your Enthusiasm. Shout out to that boy Larry David. So yeah, I don't know. Hopefully I can accomplish that goal. I think I will accomplish that goal because I've been very disciplined with my current game in playing it. I put about 20 hours into it so far in 2025. So I think I'll finish it soon, within the next week or so. And yeah, we'll just, I just want to be more intentional with what I'm playing. And that like those 5 being the only real experiences that I can remember. I remember playing Rebirth, the 7 hours that I gave that game last year before I just moved on to other stuff. It was just too big for me to play at the time that it came out. I knew it was going to be massive, and the way I wanted to engage with it, I had to put it down. But yeah, like, I don't know about 40 of those 79 games, so I don't want that to happen again. Like 50 I'm fine with, but 79 is crazy, especially to have only beaten 2. And I think the way that I'm going to do that, and now we're about to get into what I'm looking forward to playing in 2025, is just like knowing what I used to be. This type of gamer when I was making less money. I used to just pick out like 3, 4, or 5 games that I knew I was gonna buy day one that year and just play those. I had a much smaller backlog when I was doing that. So, what I'm looking forward to playing in 2025, outside of the game that's coming out next week that I'll get into a little later, but Assassin's Creed Shadows. I don't have much to say about any of that. At the time of recording, I do believe that we are due for a last major marketing push as far as gameplay trailers and interviews and yada, 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 and previews coming out. Because that game is literally like a month and 7 days away from today. So, yeah, I've been waiting on that game for a long time. Like, I've been waiting on the Samurai Assassin's Creed experience for a while. And yes, I got even more excited when it was announced that Yasuke would be the samurai and that Naoe would be a second protagonist. I think I'm pronouncing her name correctly, but from a ninjutsu perspective, you know what I'm saying? The whole setup looks really cool. It's the Origins team working on it. I'm not gonna do a lot. And real quick, we're not doing culture war on this channel too much this year. I have no commentary on racist tweets because I think that most people are starting to realize, like, the common person is realizing that these people are rage baiting. They're just saying what they're saying to create engagement and like make money off of it. They're not even like saying what they're saying to see change in what they're asking for. They're just saying it to get a reaction. I'm not trying to contribute too much to the reaction anymore. We're going to take these games for what they are. We're going to play them. If they're good, they're good. If they're bad, they're bad. That's what it used to be back in the day. So this ain't going to be that channel. Not too often. Not too many episodes are going to be dedicated to reacting to the outcry of anything. So anyway. So that'll probably be the first new game I play this year in February. And I'm doing this in the order of how I think these games are going to come out too. Because next on my list that I want to play is Doom: The Dark Ages. I don't have much to say about Doom. That's a day one buy for me. It has been since the first Doom, the 2016 reboot. Eternal is one of my favorite games of all time, period. It's one of the best FPSs ever made. But that's that low key, like they got some between Doom and Wolfenstein. Those are some crazy first person shooters. We got one trailer for that. Looks super dope. Day one purchase, you know what I mean? To a little prequel. I do need to play through the Ancient Gods, I think it's called, or the Ancient Ones 2-part add-on to Eternal. I'm midway through part 1. I still haven't finished it because I just engaged with the master levels and stuff. I just got to a point where I just wanted to do the gameplay loop, but I need to finish that story with the makers and all that. So I don't know where they're going with Dark Ages, but the trailer was sick. And honestly, I don't know how they have the technology they have in the trailer if there's not a time travel situation going on. I don't know if this is like a true prequel, but we'll see. I don't even have time to speculate. Next, Borderlands 4. I anticipate a late summer, like an August or September release for that game. Maybe earlier though. If GTA 6 is really coming out this year, this is going to be how you can tell. If Borderlands 4 comes out before July, then we are going to get a GTA 6 this year. But if it don't, we're not getting GTA 6 this year. And that's why GTA 6 is not on my list of what I'm looking forward to playing, because I don't think it's coming out this year. Borderlands 4, though, that's been a day one purchase for me since Borderlands 2. Me and my dad, shout out to my pops, like we bought that game like day one. Borderlands 2, played it off the strength of what Borderlands 1 was when we bought it used. So Borderlands 2 we bought day one. Borderlands 3 I bought day one. I eventually bought Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, but Borderlands 4 I'm buying that day one. That's a day one purchase. Ghost of Yotei. And I'm gonna try and just get through these because they're not really what I want to talk about that much today. But Ghost of Yotei is a day one purchase. Ghost of Tsushima. I probably sound like a hype beast on this particular episode, but Ghost of Tsushima is one of the best open world action games ever made. It is. Like, it's up there. Like, if we're doing a top 10, all the games that I've said is one of the best are in that top 10. I'll put it that way. So Ghost of Yotei, I think, is going to be incredible. I'm glad that they're moving it 300 years into the future. I'm glad that, like, we're not sticking with Jin. I think even though I haven't beat that game, I know that game is just, I know the story of that game is, it doesn't really serve a sequel being made. So I'm excited to be dealing with a new protagonist in a new area of Japan with some newer technologies. You know, there's a quick clip of her using a gun in the trailer. The way in which you engage with that open world is incredible. Just like it is one of those games that leans heavier into just the artistic side of gaming, as far as like the wind being your guiding, you know, just your guide basically to objectives. And the way you engage with animals and wildlife in that game, and just the landscapes in that game. It's an every frame of painting type of game. You know what I'm saying? So I'm really excited for what that's going to be like on the PS5 Pro in particular. Not much to say about it because there isn't. All we have is that state of play trailer. I know that they say 2025. I'm buying that game. I do anticipate a September release for that. September. It won't be October, I don't think. It may be October, but I don't know. It depends. It really depends on what GTA 5 is or GTA 6 is doing. And yeah, so I'm hyped for that. The next one that they say is coming in 2025. And I think it's one of those games that's either going to get pushed back or it's going to stay in that late 2025 window. They just finally gave us a release date window around the time of the Game Awards. But Crimson Desert. From the first time I ever saw a trailer for that game, that has been a must-buy for me. The way the combat looks, the graphical effects, the open world, a combination of mostly fantasy with a little bit of sci-fi thrown in there. I don't know what's going on with some of that stuff, but it looks cool. From the moment that I saw that initial reveal trailer, it's been a must-buy to me. It just seems like it seems like they are. I think Pearl Abyss is a Korean developer. They just seem really dedicated to what they're trying to create. It seems like it's a character action game, so I don't believe you're going to be able to customize your main character. I think you're playing as the guy you're seeing in those trailers, and I think that whole game has its own culture. It looks very, very. I don't know why I get a Scottish vibe, like in the accents and that sort of thing, but it just has that energy going for it. So it looks like it's a set culture. It's a set just like aesthetic. It looks like a combination of Witcher and Zelda and Final Fantasy and a lot of my favorite things all rolled into one. And it also looks incredible. We don't get a lot of games, honestly, that come out that are just like, oh my God, this looks really good. Looks like graphics are being pushed forward. That doesn't happen a lot. So I'm really excited for that. I just can't wait. I hope it comes out this year. If it gets delayed though, I'm not going to be mad. Regardless of GTA 6, if they delay it just to polish it up, do what you got to do. Because that's a game I'm going to lock in and hyperfixate on. I already know. And last on my must-play day one buy list is South of Midnight. I'm not going to get too heavy on that. You can actually go to is it the last episode? It might be the last episode of the podcast. But it's either episode 9 or episode 8 where I did a South of Midnight preview, and you can hear more of my words and excitement about that one. But just to give you a short explanation, it is it's a game that takes place in a fictionalized version of Louisiana in the Bayou. You know, it's very true to the Deep South as far as its aesthetic and its main character. I'm just really excited to engage with that game. It's got a storybook folktale aesthetic to it. It's an adventure game, and I love that for us. I love that for young Black gamers to be able to see in such high fidelity, especially ones in the South. The South is rarely touched as far as like storytelling in video games. Storytelling, I ain't gonna say storytelling in general, but especially video games. So it's really cool that is the backdrop for this particular game, especially for Xbox. I have not touched my Series X since I got it for Stalker 2. So that'll give me a reason. That's a day one buy. That's a day one play. And I'm really excited to cover that game more as more details come out and we finally get that in our hands. I got a few honorable mentions that I'm not going to spend a lot of time on. The Outer Worlds 2, whenever that comes, I'll play that. Hell Is Us, I covered that on one of my episodes that I dealt with a lot of state of play. Hell Is Us looks kind of cool. You know, not really telling you how to get to where you're going. You really just have to engage with it as if you are a character in the game. You know what I'm saying? So I'm kind of excited for that. Not necessarily a day one buy because I got to see how that's one of those games where I got to see what the general media is saying before I decide to purchase it, because I got to see if I really want to engage with those types of mechanics. Because I do like a world map or a compass or a little dot on the screen to tell me where to go for my objective. I like a minimalist vibe, but I don't know if I want all of that turned off. So if there's not too much in the way of customizing that experience, it may not be a day one purchase, but I am intrigued by it. The first Berserker, which I'm highlighting number one, it's coming out in March, and I'm highlighting it because it's going to be $59.99 standard, which we just need more of that. Excuse me. It is a true third-person action adventure Souls-like game. So it's a true Souls-like. Like Wukong, Stellar Blade, those are not Souls-likes to me. This looks like a Souls-like. It looks like it's got some difficulty to it. I don't know much about the canon. I don't know much about the lore. It just looks like a cool action game, so I'll check it out. Split Fiction. One of the games that wasn't in my top 5, probably because we didn't finish it yet, but It Takes Two is a game I played last year for the first time. I really, really enjoy that game. I really enjoy the storytelling, and the guys at Hazelight, or the guys and gals at Hazelight, are coming back with Split Fiction, which is the same idea of being co-op only, whether on the same system or via online. You play as two writers. One writer writes in fantasy, the other writes in science fiction, and they end up having to engage in the other person's world, and obviously that person is going to be able to help the other person navigate it, and yada yada yada. But I like it being the two characters this time being two creatives, and we'll see how the story of It Takes Two is incredible. It's very poignant, it's very emotional. So I know that they have the writing chops to give us something really good in Split Fiction, and it just looks like it's got a bigger budget with really cool levels and cool fantasy and cool sci-fi. So I'm excited to engage with that. Lost Soul Aside is the next one on my list. It's been given a 2025 release window. Don't know when that is, but I hope it ends up being a Stellar Blade-like game, like an April type of game for PlayStation. Coming out of China. I've had my eye on that game since the first reveal trailer. It is a day one buy for me. It's just not it's not on my initial list because I don't really know when it's coming out. But I will pay for that game. I will buy that game day one. And then last on that list, honorable mentions, Wu Chang Fallen Feathers, which is I don't even know how to describe it. It's a Korean 16th, 17th century fantasy type of game, action RPG. Reminds me of Wukong and Stellar Blade, if they took place during that, because it's a female protagonist, but it's kind of like 15th, 16th, 17th century Eastern aesthetic. I don't know which century, but it's around that time period. High fantasy, with monsters and spirits and dealing with things of that nature. So I'm kind of hyped for that. And just while we're talking about the East, I saw something really interesting in the news this week. Yesterday, actually. Apparently, and I'm going to pull the article up here. But apparently, the United States government, the Pentagon to be specific, has designated Tencent as a Chinese military company. Tencent shares plunged nearly 10% after it was designated a military company. I'm reading from the New York Times. The Chinese battery manufacturer CATL was also added to the list. But Tencent is the one I want to talk about. The Pentagon on Monday labeled Tencent, the Chinese social media and gaming giant, as a Chinese military business operating in the United States, the latest action in an escalating series of retaliatory moves between the world's two superpowers. Tencent's shares in the U.S. plunged by nearly 10% after the decision by the Defense Department, which also targeted Chinese battery, drone, and shipping companies. I wonder if my gimbal company is on that list, the company that makes my gimbal. Anyway, because they make drones too. The Defense Department updates annually a list of what it designates as, quote, Chinese military companies, end quote, entities it has identified as both having military and commercial technology. There are now 134 companies on the list, which was posted to the Federal Register. Putting Tencent on the list was, quote, clearly a mistake, a spokeswoman for the company said in an emailed statement. We are not a military company or supplier. Tencent also said, excuse me guys, sorry, I was getting a phone call, that the listing would have no impact on our business and that it would work with the Department of Defense to address any misunderstanding. The designation is a warning to business in the United States that working with companies on the list could get them barred from future Pentagon contracts. To be added to the list, a company must have some business operations within the United States, For example, CATL is licensing its battery technology to the American car maker Ford Motor, which is building a $3.5 billion electric vehicle factory in Michigan. That's interesting, but not really relevant. Let me keep scrolling. See if there's anything more. And then they just get into some of the stuff that's been going on. I mean, the Chinese regulators have announced an investigation into the American computer chip company NVIDIA, banned the export of rare minerals to the United States, and taken more targeted swipes at individual companies to expose their supply chain vulnerabilities. It's just Chinese American beef. That's definitely being amped up because of the incoming administration. I just think it's really interesting that Tencent is even being designated that, particularly because of and the only reason I'm bringing them up is because we were talking about them 2 episodes ago because of the possibility of them buying Ubisoft and turning Ubisoft into a private company. That's just really interesting. Tencent, for some of you guys who don't know, they have a pretty large stake in Riot Games. Riot Games publishes League of Legends. League of Legends is the show that Arcane is based on. Tencent also contributed to the budget of Black Myth Wukong. I think they contributed something like 9% of something that amounts to about 9% of the total budget of that game. And that was towards the last 2 years of its development. And again, with the rumors circulating, they have I think Tencent has a 8% share of Ubisoft. Don't quote me. I'll put an asterisk down to see how much they already own of Ubisoft, but that's very interesting. That is very interesting. Now, I don't think Ubisoft would be concerned with trying to get a military contract, or maybe, I don't know, because they make the Division, and I think that these games, especially the ones that are tied to the military, they do have to work with the Department of Defense to some extent. So I don't know what that means for Ubisoft if they end up getting bought by Tencent, but I do think it's interesting that a company that we as American gamers are familiar with as a gaming company, a gaming giant, in the mobile space and a little bit in the console space, that's just really interesting. It's going to be an interesting year in gaming. I mean, last year, something like 14,000 people were laid off. You have digital overtaking physical even more. The pricing of some of these consoles, the PS5 Pro being $699. NVIDIA is unveiling the 50 series as we speak. Starting at about $550. We're going to see a boom of AI in video games. I think there's going to be more developers coming forward about the fact that they're using AI to accelerate development and all that kind of stuff. And a lot of these materials needed to make, just to engage in AI computing, needing to get a lot of those materials out of China, and the U.S. trying to figure out a way to manufacture those materials here in the States. That's a very interesting way to start the new year, in my opinion. That to me is the first major story of the year. And I'm not educated enough to really break it down for you. I just wanted to make you guys aware that Tencent, a game that is partially responsible for one of my favorite games of 2024, and is partially responsible for, not partially responsible, but may be, they have partial ownership of and may have full ownership of one of the biggest game developers and publishers that operates in the US. I think that's really interesting, man. And I'm curious as to what, I didn't see anything in the article because I scrolled to the bottom. I didn't see anything in the article that said why the Pentagon would even make that decision as far as Tencent is concerned. I don't know. I don't know enough to just say, oh, this is just this. I don't think it's just xenophobia. I don't think this is just the U.S. I think there's something more to it. There's something more. I don't know if there's a concern with Tencent acquiring the amount of information that it would acquire if it owned Ubisoft. You know what I'm saying? The information that it would come into ownership of, the information of American gamers and consumers. I don't know if that's a concern. I don't know. And I'm not about to speculate because I'm not educated enough to do that. And I'm not about to pretend like I know what I'm talking about. I just think that is really interesting. That is super interesting. And I will be keeping my eye on the Tencent Ubisoft situation throughout the year. And I think Assassin's Creed Shadows' success or failure is going to accelerate or decelerate the process of Tencent taking over Ubisoft. Because if that happens, I'm probably on record as speaking in support of that, but that's going to have some serious ramifications for the greater gaming industry. Like, if Tencent is the parent company becomes the parent company of Ubisoft, I think that gives Xbox and PlayStation something to think about at the very least if that happens. Especially if you take into account Ubisoft Plus having a major foothold in both the PlayStation and Xbox digital libraries and subscription models. Like, particularly Microsoft is an American company, so how are they? We'll see. We will see. And Microsoft, they did say this is gonna, companies that work with this company, companies that are on this list. You know what I'm saying? This has implications for your relationship with us. I think Microsoft has a relationship with the Department of Defense. Out of all the big gaming companies, I think Microsoft definitely has a relationship with the Department of Defense. So hosting Ubisoft Plus on your platform, I don't know, is there going to be some kind of punishment that comes behind that? Well, I don't know, behind closed doors. We'll see what happens. Way above my pay grade, way above. I just wanted to make my audience aware of that. So, getting into the games that I've been playing section of this podcast. You guys know that this is a gameplay fueled podcast. One of the games that wasn't on my day one buy list, but because I was going to talk about it, but is on that list because I talked about it a couple episodes ago, is Dynasty Warriors Origins. I think it's from Koei Tecmo. I'm pretty sure. I don't think it's is it a Bandai Namco game? I don't think so. I'll put an asterisk and tell you. But yeah, that game I am super interested in. And there is a demo that I have been procrastinating downloading for the last 2 or 3 weeks that it's been available, because it comes out next Friday, January 17th. And so I really want to talk about that game. So I was like, I got to play the demo before I record this episode. And I actually have played 3 hours of that demo. And it's about an hour long demo. So I played it 3 or 4 times. And I got gameplay showing. The demo appears to be the first real battle as the nameless hero, the protagonist of the game, who is known as the Wanderer also. Dynasty Warriors, for those of you who are unfamiliar, it's a tactical action RPG. I don't know how else to describe it, because it combines real-time action combat with the tactical nature of commanding a battlefield from a top-down perspective. So I have never played a Dynasty Warriors. For whatever reason, that game has always felt kind of far away from me. But this really caught my eye, because I was like, oh, of course I'm going to play this. I've always wanted to play a Dynasty Warriors game. And by the time I became a real gamer, it was just mad other stuff to play. Because I watched Dynasty Warriors go from 4 to 9. I'm aware. I remember Dynasty Warriors 5 at the earliest, maybe not 4, but 5 for sure, and Extremes and Legends and all that kind of stuff. So I always wanted to play, but I never bought one of those games. I don't know why. I just never bought one. Origins is really freaking cool. It is a tactical game. You can't just come in that game hacking and slashing. You have to be a little intentional about where you are on the battlefield in relations to what the goal is for this particular battle. So the way that the demo opens, you're kind of semi-introduced to your allies. And I played this game in English and Chinese. I think it was Chinese. It might have been Japanese. Yeah, I think the audio is in Japanese, even though the game takes place during the Three Kingdoms era of China. But anyway, but I played it in English and Japanese. And better English voiceover than Stellar Blade. Not quite on the level of Wukong. But I'm gonna have to play it in English, because they're constantly talking throughout the battle, and you're gonna miss who needs your help. Because they're responding to what you're doing and also to what's going on. So you're gonna miss which allies need your help if you're not constantly looking at the subtitles, which are on the left side of the screen. They're not at the very bottom. And the action is so intense, you're not going to read any of the subtitles anyway. So that's a game I'm probably going to end up playing in English. But like I said, you have to move through the battlefield with intention. You know what I'm saying? And it's set up really cool. There's a lot of production value here as far as the cutscenes and yada, yada, yada. And the demo, of course, is taken out of the context of the main game. So it doesn't feel like the first mission. It feels like the second or third mission. Because I still don't really know who the Wanderer is or yada. And that's not even why I wanted to play this game. The story isn't what draws me. This might be from. This is from the guys that gave us Rise of the Ronin and Wolong Fallen Dynasty, because there's like some Wolong stuff you get with the deluxe. And if you played Wolong and if you played Rise of the Ronin, then you can get an idea of how this combat that you're seeing might feel. You get to choose you get to set your loadout, so you get to choose your weapons, and then once you choose your main weapon and your main companion, you also get to set the skills that correspond to that weapon. So you need to keep a skill equipped that can stop another major enemy character's like special move. You know what I'm saying? And then the rest can be like whatever type of abilities that you want. And then the battle starts. And you have a horse that can kind of help you move around the battle, because there's a point on the battlefield you're trying to get to, but you got to get through this point here and this garrison here and this base here and yada, yada, yada. And you've got your smaller NPC enemies that you can slice and dice at like 12 or 20 at a time. You're going to rack up like hundreds of kills throughout this battle. Like I think I ended the battle with like 1,200 total kills. And the first time I played this demo, I made the mistake of just trying to hack and slash everything. I didn't take it at its word of being a tactical action game. So even though you would get a pop-up that says, hey, they need your help at point A, for whatever reason, I was going to point G to clear out all the enemies. So whatever, you know what I mean? I wasn't playing it correctly. And I realized I wasn't playing it correctly when I got to the final boss my first time through the demo, and was like, dang, buddy's it's not that he's hard. I'm just not taking him seriously. This is not an arcade game. You know what I mean? So you got to have a little bit of strategy. You got to know what skills do what and when to use them. Because and that final battle can kind of be made easier if you do what you're supposed to do in as far as the objectives. Like if you go help your allies where they need your help, you know what I'm saying? And you make a point of, just because there's some red here doesn't mean you need to engage in this part of the battlefield, because your AI allies are probably going to come over there and take care of it anyway. But there's other AI that needs your help, and you should be trying to capture this garrison to make so that you have more allies with you to do things when things get heated. And what I love about this particular game outside of the combat is the atmosphere, because when you do certain tactical commands, like when you command your soldiers to do a charge or to do an encirclement or to do a arrow volley or whatever, just the audio is super dope. Like hearing them, like it feels like playing through one of those Chinese epic war films, right? Like where you just got like a sweeping shot of hundreds of soldiers and like a general or whatever, and then everybody charges on their horses and then they engage somewhere in the middle. It feels like that. And it gets really cinematic when you do things at the right time. You know, when you're playing a mini boss with your chosen companion and y'all get him down to a certain level, and then you get to do a joint attack move. It's a very cinematic experience for what it is, but it's a very video gamey experience too, in the way that it plays. It plays wonderfully. It looks beautiful in the PS5 Pro. It's not a Stellar Blade or Wukong in its flashiness, because I think it's meant to play. I think it's meant to perform really well. I think that's the magic that's happening, is not necessarily in the visuals, but in the performance, because you will have hundreds of soldiers. You can have hundreds of soldiers on screen at once, or just in your immediate vicinity. And because you can kind of move around and go where you want to, it's a miracle that this game plays as smooth as it does. I think I prioritized 4K and I prioritized 60 FPS, and I think through VRR it got me there. And obviously in this final recording and presentation, you're seeing it at 30 FPS, but I think it's really cool. I'm going to at least preview the first 8 hours of that game. I don't know if it's going to be a day. I've pre-ordered it, so it may be a day one purchase. It probably will be a day one purchase, to be honest. I have pre-ordered it, so yeah. I'm going to get it. I'm going to add it to the collection. It might not be an immediate play, but I will add it to the collection and kind of just play around with it. I got to have that one on disc. I don't mind buying it day one at $69.99 either. I think it's got more than enough content to justify spending $70 day one. And I like the gameplay loop already. And once I have more agency over who I am and the weapons I'm using and who my companions are and leveling them up and buying new skills, I think that's going to draw me in even deeper and keep me engaged. So that probably will be a day one purchase. because I like a game where you can customize your weapons and your skills. That was a thing that I felt like was kind of missing in Final Fantasy 16. You just got better swords with better damage. That's really it. The beauty of Final Fantasy 16's combat comes in mixing and matching after you purchase new skills. And then once you've maxed them out enough, then you can have different icons equipped so that you can quickly switch from this skill to that skill, and then having a set loadout of skills that you can switch between as you got more and more powerful. That was where that game really shined, but the weapons weren't interesting enough. They didn't have a particular effect. Each weapon play, like a sword is going to play different than like a pole with a blade at the end. You know what I'm saying? Like they all play differently, and they have different skills to correspond with the type of weapon that you're using. So yeah, I'm hyped for that. I'm really hyped to play that. I don't know if you level up like in a traditional RPG and you have skill trees, because I didn't see any skill trees, or if you're going to be purchasing these new abilities and new weapons. I'm leaning towards purchasing because there's like an item system as well that you can set like what you're going to have equipped when you go into a particular battle. And I think you got to buy those. I think you're going to have to buy however many. You may be able to upgrade your capacity and whatnot, but we'll see. Maybe there's a way to upgrade how quickly you can get that meter up to use your special moves, because all of your special abilities that are tied to R1 plus the face buttons, or the right bumper plus the face buttons on Xbox, those abilities have a set cost, and there's a meter at the bottom left on top of your health. So hopefully you can kind of upgrade the rate at which you earn that meter, because I think you just got to, I don't know, you might just have to get good, because I think once it really clicked with me, I was like doing combos and then adding in skills and then doing combos to build it back up and then doing a skill, and it worked out really well. The final boss, though, like I said, of the battle gave me an idea. It's not going to be Dark Souls hard, but it's not going to be, it's going to be like Stellar Blade in terms of difficulty, where your smaller enemies are not going to really be a problem once you understand how to play the game and use your abilities, especially the small NPCs. But the mini bosses aren't going to be the problem. But the main boss, you are going to kind of have to strategize with how you engage. Because the final boss of this demo, Lubu, he disbands your allies throughout the fight, and you get to a point, if you don't beat him fast enough, to where you are the only one that he's fighting. And I was getting my behind whooped the first 6 or 7 times I was fighting him. So the way you play that battle is going to impact how many allies, because in that final battle before Lubu appears, where you're at that final gate of the demo, you've got because you have tactical abilities that you can do with your soldiers, and some of the generals in the battlefield on the opposing side, they have tactical abilities that they can do. So there was one instance where, what did they call it? It was basically just a massive charge, and if you didn't kill 500 enemies within a minute and a half or a minute and 45 seconds, they were going to do this crazy charge on your army, and that was definitely going to do some damage to you. And then there was another instance where they were crowding around, they were doing a firewall is what they called, around another particular general, and you had to penetrate that and defeat that general in the set amount of time, or I think they were going to do a crazy fire volley on you. I don't know what he was going to do. It was very obvious the charge was going to be the charge, but I don't know what was going to happen if the time ran out and I didn't beat that guy. But yeah, so when that happens, you kind of have to lock in on that, take care of those mini objectives within the battle, and that will keep, because there's a momentum meter as well, as far as you and your allies versus your opponents. And so I just really like how many different things there are that are going on, because again, as a gamer with ADHD, my favorite type of game is either a game with something to hyperfixate on or multiple things to manage at once in an action context. And I don't know any other game besides Dynasty Warrior Legends that does it in this type of way. So I'm really excited to engage with it. So yeah, I'm going to post my full demo gameplay, if not later in the same day of this podcast, the next day, so that you guys can see it before that game comes out and make your own decisions. Because it's just really dope. I just really enjoy that game. So yeah, I really like Dynasty Warriors Origins as far as that demo. Download that demo if you have a PS5 or an Xbox. Check it out for yourself and see if it's for you. Let me know in the comments if you played that game at all. I would love to hear you guys' perspective on it. Because like I said, it's going to be a day one buy for me at the very least. Might not be a day one play, but it's a day one buy because I want more games like that. And I would like the Dynasty Warriors franchise to continue. And we really have to be intentional with the games we buy as far as what type of series we want to see continue on. So that's my 2 cents on Dynasty Warriors. All right, guys. So a friend of mine that I have made through my place of work, I talked about this in the stream for this particular game, but he bet me that he could beat Red Dead Redemption 2 before I beat this particular game. Because he's asked me to play this game before. And I didn't play it since the last time he asked me to. And so the next time I saw him, he's like, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and give you $5 to start that game up. Because you like these types of games. And if I beat Red Dead 2, you got to give me $5. But if you beat Days Gone before I beat Red Dead 2, then you don't owe me $5. And I was like, all right, bet. Because I'm going to see him again on the day of the Assassin's Creed Shadows launch. So that's pretty much our window to finish these 2 games. And I was telling him, I don't think, because I know what type of gamer you tell me you are, I don't think that you're going to be able to beat Red Dead Redemption 2. Because this was a bet made in the middle of December, towards the end of December, like a few days before Christmas. I don't think you're going to beat Red Dead 2 by February 14th. So I'll take you up on that bet. And that bet was on Days Gone. Don't know if I said the name already, but Days Gone is the game I'm playing right now. And I've heard a lot of people say that game is massive, that it gets really deep and it opens up tremendously and you can do a lot. But I just don't know if it's Red Dead 2 deep. But we'll see. Because I see the light now. I totally understand the screaming for a Days Gone sequel. I get it. I understand it now. I am in love with Days Gone. I love this game. It is definitely my favorite type of game with just the right amount of story. You know, it's not an RPG, but it is my favorite type of open world action game. Like, I care about the characters in this game, which a lot of open world action titles, they're struggling with that nowadays. There aren't many, honestly, that can do it well. Crimson Desert, I really want to engage with the gameplay. It'll be an added bonus if the gameplay is good and the story is also good and the characters are worth caring about. I'm not going to be upset, though. The characters aren't why I'm buying that game, so I'm not going to be upset if it's kind of mid on that front. I just want the gameplay to be great. Days Gone has really surprised me, though, with how sincere its storytelling is. So a little background for those of you who don't know, Days Gone was released in 2019 on the PS4. It is developed by Ben Studio. They're a Sony studio. The game they did before that was Uncharted Golden Abyss, which was a PS Vita game. And they did Siphon Filter on PS2. So Days Gone is the first original title that they made since Siphon Filter. So about 17, 18 years in between the two. And I've heard good things about Golden Abyss on Vita. I never had a Vita, so I never played that game. And playing Days Gone, it does have that Uncharted Last of Us type of feel. It's much more arcadey. It's as arcadey as Uncharted is, if not a little bit more. Especially when you put it next to a game like The Last of Us. But it has that like PlayStation feel. And for those of you who know what I'm talking about, you know what I mean. But it really surprised me with how quickly it got straight to the point. The game opens up, similarly to The Last of Us, in the middle of a crisis, and the main character that you play as, Deacon St. John, he got his girl, you know what I'm saying, the love of his life. She done got stabbed, and him and his homie Boozer, you know, these biker dudes, they got to get her on the chopper and get her the heck out of here. And they don't see her again after that. And then it fast forwards to you and Boozer doing something. And I can't remember because I just picked up my save from when I first played this game back in 2022. But it does fast forward to you and Boozer like 700 some days later. And you lose your bike pursuing someone else or whatever. You're chasing down some dude. And it's the game's way of introducing you to the mechanics. Yada, yada, yada. and you're just suddenly you're in this world that is like 2 years and some change removed from like Z-Day, if you will, where just all hell broke loose. And now we got camps, you know, we got factions to an extent, and drifters, and you play as a drifter, and drifters are just people who roam around this open world scavenging for scrap and food and resources. And it's not there, it has a sense of dread to it for sure, but it doesn't look as dreadful as The Last of Us does. And I think that's because it takes place in Portland, and it's just a really beautiful backdrop, just being in the mountains and all that type of stuff. Well, not Portland, excuse me, but Oregon. I wrote down, I think Oregon is the perfect choice for a zombie apocalypse, just because of the nature of the mountains and the forests and the rivers and all that kind of stuff, and just the type of people who live in that area that may be just more outdoorsy than, say, residents of LA, like in a Dead Island 2. Especially for an open world zombie experience, that's the type of backdrop that I would want to play around in. And a strong point of this game for me is the atmosphere and the combat, but especially the atmosphere. Because once you get your bike and just get to engage with the world on your terms, which again happens very quickly, then it's like that is when the game really grabbed me. Because once you get on that bike, this is one of the best motorcycles in a game. Cyberpunk finally got it right after a few updates with the steering and all that kind of stuff, and it feels great to ride bikes in that game. But Days Gone, like your motor, I don't know, the motorbike is like my favorite part of that game. Just having a motorcycle, especially because it's connected to the type of character that Deacon St. John is. He's got that biker aesthetic with the vest and who he used to be associated with, and the shotgun, you know, the sawed-off shotgun aesthetic too. It's very Mad Maxy, but on a bike. That's actually probably the best game I could compare it to. It's Mad Max with just more in the world than Mad Max and a more visually alive world. But you got similar type of enemies in the Rippers, who are just these crazy dudes that are just like off their rocker. And then you got to engage with bandits every now and then. Not bandits, but like rival camp people. That happened once. But mostly I think I haven't really dealt with anybody that's similar to who you see in a camp. I've mostly just dealt with Rippers as far as the human characters. The zombies though, like they're freaky without freaking you the heck out. The whole, like, because once you figure out the loop, they don't feel, I don't think the game wants to feel impossible. I think it's meant to kind of be I don't want to say casual, but it's meant to be an arcadey experience. Because after a couple of skill point level ups, it takes 2 hits with a melee weapon, at least a melee weapon with nails attached to it, to take one of those things out. A well-placed headshot will do it. A well-placed headshot with a silencer on your gun is not going to alert the rest of the zombies. But there is this again, there's a strong sense of dread in this game that is more born out of the human interaction than the zombies. The zombies have kind of just brought out the not necessarily the worst in humanity, but those survivalistic instincts in humanity that kind of, because we've not necessarily like we've regressed, but because your day-to-day is a basic list of just surviving and maintaining, you know what I mean? It's easier to distinguish between the best and worst qualities of humanity. And I think the zombie apocalypse has brought that out of the human characters that you interact with, because some of them it's just straight survival. People will point a gun at you in a heartbeat. Some people will, you know what I mean? It's obvious that Deacon used to, the runs that he used to do for certain camps involved kidnapping other human beings and bringing them back to a camp so that they could basically be slave labor. In a roundabout way, just wrapped in no, we have to survive, so you got to get to work. But it's like, it's still trafficking if you're taking somebody who's just made their home over here and saying, no, you're coming with me. I'm forcing you to come with me to this camp and get to work. That's slavery. And one of the characters comments and asks Deacon, you still getting slaves for yada yada? I'm not going to spoil it for you guys who are going to probably play it, but like I said, that sense of dread is born out of the human characters and the interactions that Deacon has with them, because there are some people that want to hold Deacon to who he might have been in the aftermath of, I'm just going to call it Z-Day. You know what I'm saying? It's clear that he's made some choices that, how do I say this? weren't really the best. You know what I'm saying? Like he wasn't a good guy. And I was reading up about this game and the developers' approach to it, and they kind of approached the story with a theme of redemption. And I really like Deacon because he wants to be a good guy, but he's not. He still is very cognizant of who he is and what he's willing to do. And I really love him trying to just reminisce about his girl and get some answers on what happened to her, because he hasn't seen her since he put her on the chopper with a particular scientist or whatever. And just the missions that kind of give you flashbacks. Like all of the human interactions in this game are really sincere, like on a Last of Us level, in my opinion. And I don't think Days Gone got enough love for its writing and story, because the writing can be a little like jolted. It's like, why is he saying that? Why is this person saying that here? Or like when they do the dialogue while you're on the bike and maybe you have a character on the bike with you, or you're talking to him over the radio. It's like, why are they talking about this now when we just did this? And I think they've tried to patch that to the best of their ability, but I can see why people might have had some issues with the writing in particular, but the voice work and the acting in this game is incredible. It's all done with sincerity, and it makes the world and the things that are happening in the world more believable. But the gameplay loop, again, like I said, is sublime, because it's really dope to drive around the world. And like, I like how fast travel is dealt with in this game. You still have to have some gas to fast travel, and you have to have cleared out some of those zombie infestations. You know what I'm saying? To get to where you want to go. They can't be on that path, or you can't fast travel. It's all your travel is all built around the bike, which I think is really dope. And so you gotta go into uncharted territory and deal with these zombies and burn out these nests. And sometimes it's going to be a lot of them. A large inspiration for this game is the film World War Z. I think that was one of the biggest marketing pieces for this game, was the hordes of zombies that you may have to deal with in certain instances. There was this one time I was exploring. There's these like what is it called? Not nest. It's called like what's it called? It's like the FEMA of the game. Nero. I think it's Nero. But you have Nero camps, and they have these little shots that you can put on yourself, and that's how you can choose to upgrade your stamina, your focus, which is like slowing down while you're aiming, or your health. You can make those meters larger. And so there was one on my map, so I was finna go to it, and it was inside a cave, and it was a large horde of zombies, like a lot of them, like 100 of them, and like 70 to 100. And they were kind of in this like hibernation phase. Like you guys remember in I Am Legend, if you've ever seen I Am Legend, when he goes to that building and they're in the dark, because those they're not really zombies, they're vampires, but those zombies can't come out in the daytime because it burns their skin. And so when they're in the dark, they're just all kind of like, they're all sleeping. It's really creepy. And like the sound design of Days Gone is incredible. So when you pull up on a situation like that, it's like, I gotta slow down, and if I'm going to engage, I gotta figure it out or come back when I'm more powerful. And at the time that I thought I was powerful enough, but I wasn't powerful enough to deal with a horde on foot. And I can tell that you can get to that point. You can get better weapons, so you can have the gun to handle that, and have the explosives to handle that, and also have the skills to handle a horde. But at that time, I couldn't do it. I tried it 2 or 3 times, and I just couldn't do it. And so when I came back later, there was no horde in the cave. I think that's cool too, because the hordes are not in the same place every single time you go to them. They move. And as you progress through the story, they're only going to get larger. So it's just a really sick game. And I know I know I might have made fun of the rumors of a Days Gone remaster, but if that happens this year, that's 110% going to be a day one buy for me. And I need to buy it digitally so that I can just pay like for a $10 upgrade, because it's probably going to be similar to Horizon and The Last of Us Part 1 and Part 2, where you just pay $10 to upgrade the game if you already own it. But I don't know. I might have to have Days Gone on disc. I might buy that PS5 disc if they do a remaster. I actually hope that is true, because the whole time I'm playing this game, it's a mid-budget game, and its lifetime sales are around 8 million now. If Ratchet and Clank can get a sequel at that budget and sold a similar amount, I think Days Gone deserves a sequel. I think they deserve an opportunity with a bigger budget to introduce more gameplay mechanics and fine-tune some of the others that already exist. You know, I think that game deserves Last of Us level animations with the zombies. And I know that might be a little tougher to do in an open world, which, by the way, the open world, I thought it was small at first, and it just opens up as you progress. And it is like, it's nice. It's still not overwhelmingly large, but it is like, it's large enough to ride around and feel like you're not looking at the same thing over and over again. And I think there's a nice balance. That's a nice balancing act to commit to. And Days Gone does that really well. It's not Witcher 3 size. It's like a Cyberpunk 2077 in that instance, as far as the map size. And Cyberpunk has a really dense city, but if you guys remember like just how big the map is when you include the Badlands as well, just imagine that, but like an Oregon, mountains and trees and waterfalls aesthetic. It's so dope. It's just so dope, man. And it looks really good on PS5. I don't know how much heavy lifting the Pro, because I've said before, the PS4 image quality boost is better served on games that came out with a PS4 Pro update. I think it's kind of piggybacking off of those enhancements, because it looks really good. And it looked really good on base PS5, which is where I played it a little bit before I got back into it recently. But it looks really good. It's a really good looking game. I know that, I think his name's Jeff Ross, the creative director of that game. I know that he had his issues and a small falling out with Sony, and that, you know, there were chairmen that were in support, chairman at Sony, like Worldwide Interactive or whatever the big PlayStation's called. But there was a chairman that really loved Days Gone that's no longer there anymore. So I don't know what the chances are of a sequel. I don't know what that looks like. But if the rumors of a remaster are true, and I think they are because of who they come from, I think this would be the time to show them that you want a sequel. Especially to increase those lifetime sales. I think if they could get another 2 million copies sold, 1 million or 2 copies sold on PS5 of that remaster, I think we definitely would get a Days Gone 2. Because he said he wanted it to be like a shared universe co-op experience. Because that's another thing. Although I do love Deacon St. John, this would be super dope if you could create your own biker. Like keep the bike aesthetic. I love that. I'm not opposed to that at all. But if you could create your own biker, like Days Gone is the perfect type of game for that. But even though Deacon's personal story is definitely interwoven into the larger narrative of Days Gone, this particular game, I don't think it would be very difficult to make a game where you create your own person and you can engage in online co-op. If they turn Days Gone into a division, that would be really sick. That would be really sick. It's also really expensive. So I understand why that pitch might not have worked, but I just feel like if you're from Sony Bend and you're listening to this, if you guys can't do the shared universe, and I don't know how this story ends with Deacon, but give us another character in the Days Gone universe if we can't do the online thing. You give me another, because this game can't cost more than $60 million, $70 million. I'm speculating for sure. I don't know anything about anything, but I know it's at the point now that it has been a success. It has turned a profit. So, you know, make an $80 or $100 million Days Gone. I think you'll recoup your investment. I think the fan base is strong enough for you guys to do it again. I would love to see you guys do it again. I would love another Days Gone. So, yeah, man. I'm I'm going to continue to stream that game because I'm trying to win that bet. I'm actively trying to win that bet. You can check out my, I got a 3-hour stream on the channel of that game. It's a sleeper, man. Again, I said this on the last episode because I was playing it back earlier before I started recording. Like a big cornerstone of video games is community, and not necessarily in playing with the community, but just like the conversation and like, hey, well, what type of games do you like to play? Well, I play these types and da 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 da. What are you playing? And I play these types and yada da da. And two people getting to know each other, and then somebody saying, yo, I got a recommendation for you. I got a game that you have to play that I swear by. And you've recommended some good stuff to me, so I gotta listen. I gotta return the favor. You gotta go play this. That's my favorite thing about video games, and I want to be more proactive in playing someone else's recommendation. Shout out to the dude who was in my Batman Arkham Asylum stream. Told me I gotta play Arkham Origins. I finally gotta, in that back left corner, so I can finally play Arkham Origins. But yeah, I just feel really blessed that somebody even recommended this to me, because this is, to me, is the perfect way to start my year in gaming, and I want this type of experience with every game I play. I want to play a game that's worth talking about and also worth recommending to other people. I don't want to have any frustrating experiences this year. I don't want to have an experience where it's like, well, I don't know if, unless you just don't like this genre, I don't want to find myself having to give like a preface to a recommendation. Like, this is like, Days Gone is the best type of game where it's like you play something and you discover something new. You know what I mean? Like you discover just a whole new story, a whole new aesthetic that you weren't privy to before. This Americana biker aesthetic that it has going for itself, kind of Walking Dead-ish a little bit. Like, it really works in its favor. And I think it's why it's so hard. The reason that Days Gone works really well for me is why it's so hard for me to engage with The Last of Us, even though I know those are great games. And I think part 2 remedies what is so difficult about part 1 for me to engage with. But it's just like, those games, even though Days Gone is serious, also Last of Us is just super serious. Like, it's really good at being serious and like dreadful, and it's just I just want to play. I want to play. And I think part 2, even though it is as dreadful, if not more, I think the gameplay makes up for it because it's really fun to play. It looks really fun to play. So I don't know. I can't wait to check out part 2. Days Gone is what made me, okay, I'm going to play Last of Us to get to part 2. Because I don't think part 2 comes out the way it does if Days Gone wasn't doing what it was doing leading up to it being released. Because I know that these developers kind of, especially the developers under a first party umbrella, they know what's going on at the other development offices. So it's like, I think Days Gone might have put some pressure on part 2 to be as fun as it is. Because part 1 is great, but it's just not that fun. So anyway, with that in mind, guys, I appreciate you all for tuning in today. Like I said, the next episode is going to have a real intro. The next episode and beyond is just going to be me being more intentional with the games that I'm talking about. This isn't really supposed to be a news podcast so much as it is a gameplay driven podcast. So I'm really excited for the games that you and I are going to play this year. If you enjoyed this episode, if you made it to the end, please give me a like. Please subscribe, share this with your friends. As I say every episode, I'm trying to build a community of people who enjoy games and just want to talk about games separate from the politics, separate from this is bad because of this identity. Let's just talk about games for the games that they are. That's all this channel is dedicated to. So again, I appreciate you guys being with me. Y'all take care, man. Be blessed. This is going to be a wonderful year on this channel. I am excited. Thank you guys for supporting me thus far. I hope I can continue to deliver, on the content that I'm making in the gaming space, and that I can reach new levels and reach new heights. And if you're thinking about getting into it, I encourage you to create your own safe space in gaming, because it's more necessary now than ever. So anyway, peace and love to all of you. And I will see you again in a couple of weeks. God bless.